परिहृत्य सदा चरणां बुधुहामृत शान्ति सुधा इव भृङ्गमनो भवरोगहरां प्रणमामि परां जननीं जगतां इव भृङ्गमनो भवरोगहरां प्रणमामि परां जननीं जगताम्।
भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुदस्तुन्नन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः. Welcome all of you after a fairly long interval and winter recesses. Now, you may remember I was discussing the 12th and 13th verses of the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita during the last session. Now we will continue the same verses today because it is a very, very important verse, 12th and 13th. Now the reason why it is so very important is these 3 verses and coming verses together, they discuss a very, very contemporary topic. Topics like climate change, the importance of living in perfect harmony with nature, without disturbing the external nature, without upsetting the inherent balance of the cosmic life. Not only living beings, but also the entire universe. How to live in perfect harmony with nature, and how that helps us to live with perfect harmony with our own mind. So these are some of the very important topics discussed here. So that idea, that particular philosophy of life, of living in close harmony with nature, is called the word Yagna. So if you go to any dictionary, the word Yagna is mentioned, Monier Williams or any of the well-known dictionaries, Sanskrit English dictionaries. You find Yagna, its primary meaning is a kind of ritual. These are some of the rituals practiced in ancient India by the sages, the ancient Aryan tribes and societies in ancient India, right? Maybe 5000 BC, that's the conservative estimate. So they used to perform certain rituals which implied, on the one hand, perfect harmony with nature. On the other hand, perfect harmony in interhuman relationships. Not only harmony with nature and environment, but also harmony within. So that's the real meaning of yajna. So there are, of course, those who are interested, and this being recorded, so maybe of academic interest. The word yajna has got two very important definitions in the ancient linguistics, ancient Indian Sanskrit philology and linguistics. One is yajna vai seshtatamam karma. This is the first one, which means any kind of activity, not physical activity alone. Even a word we speak is an activity, a thought, an idea. All these activities, if done without a selfish motive, with a noble purpose in our mind, that activity becomes yajna. So it is a noble action because it is devoid of any selfish purpose behind. The other one is Devadoddeshana Dravyesha Tyagaha Yajna. These are some of the etymological Sanskrit commentaries which explain the word yajna. It means you offer to gods, plural, it's the ancient Indian sages believed in some kind of a pantheism and monotheism combined. So they believe that the entire cosmos represents the interplay of some divine invisible beings behind. So above all these different divine beings, there is one spiritual reality called Brahman or Atman or consciousness, which is present everywhere, which is present in all of us. And we can realize this divine reality within us through the practice of ethical and spiritual values like unselfishness, compassion, and so on. Many of these ideas were later preached by Buddha in Prakrit language, which came to be known as the fundamental teachings of Buddha in the Pali canonical literature, with 4 noble truths and 8-fold path, which constitute Buddha's path to the highest enlightenment. So the 12th verse, if you look at the 12th verse, you find Yajnasishtas yunasandhu muchyande sarvagilbhishehi gunjade te tu agham pabha e pachandi atmagaranat. The literal meaning is very simple. Those who eat and cook and live for themselves, those who produce food, wealth, necessities for comforts and luxurious life, and enjoy themselves without sharing with others, they are not eating food, they are eating sins, is a metaphor. On the other hand, those who get things from nature but give a part of it back to nature, they will be liberated from sins. This is the literal translation. The literal translation may sound a bit simplistic. There is a profound philosophy behind it. When we take from nature, or when we take from cosmos all that we need without giving back anything to nature, it is called exploitation in modern language. So you can see the result. It disturbs the existing balance of life. And this discussion is carried on in the next verse also. So in a way, it creates a lot of problems, including climate change. See, we cut down trees, use the timber, or we construct a huge dam across the river, blocking the flow of water. We are actually disturbing the existing balance of nature. When you cut down trees, it affects rainfall, it leads to famine. And when you use modern pesticides or modern manure, then it affects the quality of food we eat, and as a result, our health, both mental and physical health, will be affected. And that leads to air pollution, environmental pollution, water pollution. So, our lifestyle, on the one hand, it becomes very disturbing in our own, at the internal level. We get disturbed. Our health fails when we eat bad food, when the climate is affected, when there is air pollution, water pollution. It disturbs our even internal life, physical life. It also disturbs the existing harmony and balance of cosmic life. So the ancient Vedic literature speaks about this unique principle. It's called a rhythm. Rhythm literally means an existing harmony which is already there. It is already there in our physical system. It gets disturbed and we fall sick. And when that existing harmony, purity is disturbed, then nature also responds. It could be earthquake, it could be famine, it could be many other problems caused by deforestation, environmental pollution, human-induced climate change, and things like that. So, on the one hand, the rhythm implies the interrelatedness, internal harmony. On the other hand, it also implies the cosmic balance. So, but this balance can be preserved only when we practice restraint and unselfishness. Freedom from greed, freedom from desire to possess things. All these qualities are necessary for even keeping the cosmic life intact. So Lord Krishna says in the 12th verse that those who live to eat are eating poison. And those who eat to live are supporting the internal balance. We can deal with the act of eating only. Either we live to eat, which means extreme greed, exploit the entire cosmic nature, just to make some few more extra dollars, make our life physically a little more comfortable. So they are living to eat. Those who eat to live, they have a higher philosophy. And food is nothing but something that is necessary for keeping our physical life intact. So this I already discussed earlier in the last session. So I was trying to summarize in just a few words what I already discussed in details in the last class. The next verse, of course, this 14th verse I am discussing. Annat bhavanti bhudani parjanyad anna sambhavaha yajnat bhavati parjanyo yajna karma samudbhavaha. And then the 15th verse, karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagadam brahma nityam yajne pradishthidam. So I shall read the translations of these two verses, 14th and 15th verses of the 3rd chapter. Then we will discuss the topic. From food, living beings comfort. From rain, food is produced. From yajna arises rain, and yajna is born of karma. Know that karma has arisen from the Vedas, and the Vedas from the imperishable. Therefore, all the pervading Veda is ever centered in yajna. These are ancient language. This Bhagavad Gita, as most of you know. It is a small fragment of a very, very ancient, a very huge, voluminous Sanskrit book, supposed to be the biggest book. In its larger version, it contains 145,000 verses. In its present version that we can see in publication, it contains more than 100,000 Sanskrit verses. It's a huge volume. It is placed somewhere in the 3rd millennium BC. That means almost more than 5,000 years old. It deals with dozens of dynasties, kings, rises and fall of empires and kingdoms and dynasties. But the central theme is the principle of dharma, the cosmic philosophy of ethical life. So the Bhagavad Gita, the text that we are dealing with, is a small, tiny fragment of this huge Sanskrit work called Mahabharata. And this text has only 700 verses divided into 18 chapters. And most of what you hear today, including what you study in yoga, all these breathing exercises, Vedanta, philosophy, all these subjects are discussed in this present book. Now coming to the 14th verse. But in the beginning it says, from food all beings are created. Now what does it mean? All our physical bodies are essentially related to the kind of food we eat. And also our mind and character also can be influenced by the food that we eat. Because food also affects our mind, our emotions and feelings. And it also affects the way we speak. You can imagine what you drink or eat can influence the way you speak and walk. So well known. So it says the physical body is closely related to the kind of food that we eat. And then essentially, let's think of an age about 5,000 years back. Food comes from grains. And food grains, we get food grains because of rains. So that is Parjanyat Anna Sambhavaka. Anna means food, matter. These are some of the meanings for the word Anna. Parjanya has got two meanings. A very profound meaning. One is rains. Second meaning is the subtle result of our actions. So many of these ideas can be properly understood only if you can get an idea of law of karma and the doctrine of reincarnation. The idea that what we do affects our life and also life outside of us. Nothing is isolated. Everything is connected through this cause-effect link. Nothing is without a cause. So whatever we do, whatever we speak, whatever actions we perform will on the one hand produce one visible, obvious result that we can see immediately and experience. Then there is another result which is not so clearly seen, is invisible. You help a person. Well, if you give a person, let us say $100, the immediate result is that that $100 is no more with you. You are given to somebody else. That is one result. That there is another result that produces an effect which is not visible. So that effect is called the invisible. In Sanskrit, it's called adrishtam, which means not seen, but strongly felt. We can see that many of our experiences, if we closely analyze and think and contemplate, sit somewhere in a lonely place and think, you'll suddenly find the thread coming together. There is a cause-effect link. It's not that we interpret artificially with the help of this law of karma. That's only logical way of understanding certain events and experiences. Every experience has some cause, and that is some action and its result. So action and its effect. This cause-effect link. In fact, this law is more powerful than any scientific law. Law of gravitation, law of relativity. Because many of the scientific laws in physics, undergo change, or their relevance may get modified. Maybe as science advances forward, new rules may be, new laws may be discovered as nature unfolds its secrets. So some of the existing beliefs can be modified or changed, or may be corrected. But these laws remain the same. They are much more absolute, they are much more lasting than any laws in physics. That is cause-effect relationship. So here it is says, in our life, our physical body is the result or affected by the food that we eat. But our life itself is dependent upon certain actions we already do. Even our character, according to Vedanta, Yoga, and Buddhism, or many of these ancient religious traditions, they believe that our present life can be explained. Especially, there are certain events and experiences which defy our reasoning power. There are certain events and experiences that we can explain, perhaps, logically, but certain experiences that we cannot really explain. So, many of these ancient religious traditions believe that it's because of certain effects of karma, actions, that we may have performed in previous life or previously. So, that is also another meaning of Parjanya. So here the verse tells you the physical body or life are related to food that we eat, and the food is a gift of rains, and rains again is a result of Yagna. Yagna bhavati parjanyo. Parjanya can mean cloud also, Yagna. What does it mean? Our activities, our actions, our respect for environment, our way of handling the phenomenal nature, that in a way affects the abundance or absence of rains. So we get from nature according to what we give to nature, or according to the way we deal with nature. Nature retaliates. It may be in the form of a big tsunami. It may be in the form of some terrible diseases. It may be in the form of some inexplicable new viruses, as frequently we read about. But there could be some cause somewhere behind. Some human mischief is always behind every kind of nature's retaliation. Nature is retaliating because it wants to give back to us according to what we have given it. If we keep the forest intact, the environment intact, the rivers and lakes and sky intact, pure and serene, then nature will also be compassionate. Otherwise, nature will react accordingly. That's why rain is here taken as a metaphor, a gift coming from nature. That's rains. And that is very important. Without these rains, human life is impossible. Food grains production will come to a halt. So the word rain should be taken as a metaphor for the gift of cosmic nature to us, for human welfare, for human happiness, for human survival. And then Yagna karma samudbhavaha, that means. So this is the 14th verse. The 15th verse tells you karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasma sarvagadam brahma nityam yajne pradishthidam. Now, the word Brahma is used here in this particular verse, 15th verse. So that's a problem of ancient scriptures, Brahma here doesn't mean Brahman or anything. It means Vedas. Again, it's a metaphor. So many of these teachings are handed over through the teacher, student, tradition and succession for thousands of years. So Brahma here means Vedas. The spiritual literature that expound the reality of Brahman as the all-pervading spiritual reality present everywhere, the divine reality called Atman or consciousness, the inner divinity present in all of us. That is, Emerson's poem well known by Brahma, four verses poem. That's what Emerson is talking about. Not the Vedas, but he's talking about Brahman, the word, the cosmic reality. So, actions have come from Vedas. It means, what it's saying is this, it's how to act, how to perform, how to live in this world, going about our duties and responsibilities, living in perfect harmony with nature and environment. These ideas are discussed in the Vedas, and that particular section of the Vedas where these ideas are elaborately discussed is called Karma Kanda, the section dealing with rituals. So, if you read about the ancient Vedic rituals of India, all these rituals are based on the principle of giving back to nature a fraction of what nature gives you. It doesn't mean that you get food grains because the nature is compassionate, it produces plenty of rains. So you give food back to nature, food grains you give to nature, not at all. What it means, you use the Mother Earth and all that exists on this earth, the rivers, the air, everything, with a sense of sanctity and sacredness. It's called a sense of renunciation. Means absence of greed. So you can see, some of you may have seen, these Vedic sacrifices. In ancient India, during the Vedic times, there were no temples. Absolutely no temple. And there was no image worship during these ancient times. I'm talking about 5000 BC. Or maybe earlier, when the Vedas were actually composed. There was no temple and there was no image worship. The only way they practiced religion was to meditate sitting under a tree, and the teachers used to teach this meditation to their disciples with the help of illustrations taken from nature. Now, many of these rituals consisted of performing fire sacrifices on, those who have visited our temple every year on January 1st may have seen an example, a very simple, the simplest imaginable form of fire sacrifice. Normally these sacrifices last for 14, 15 years, these Vedic rituals. Some of them last for 1 year, some of them last for 13, 14 days. So one of our professors in the Berkeley University, Professor Fitzgerald, spent 40 years writing his 2-volume magnum opus on these ancient Vedic rituals, which were performed for 14 days, 15 days, continuously from morning till evening. As a small, simple fire sacrifice we perform every year. That's only 45 minutes, not 14 days. Now, one important principle of these rituals was offering on fire some of the things that we normally eat and make use of in our everyday life. Ghee was offered. Ghee means clarified butter. Yogurt, curds were offered. Milk was offered. Cooked food grains were offered. This was the ancient rituals practiced in India, ancient times. There were no temples in those days. There was no image worship. Now these huge elaborate rituals performed normally in our ancient big temples was not there. But the one basic principle of these Vedic sacrifices was giving back to nature little of what we give. Some of these mantras which they uttered while putting offerings. Offerings means butter, milk, cooked food. These mantras, if you know Sanskrit language, you will understand these mantras, if translated into English, would be something like this: for the welfare of humanity, for the purity of nature, for the welfare of nature, for more rains, for long life for the whole humanity, so that these rivers and mountains and valleys, all of them should remain pure and they should flourish. So, Dev Shanti, Antariksham Shanti, Prithivi Shanti, Oshadaya Shanti, some of these mantras. Shanti means peace. Let the earth, the mountains, the valleys, the rivers, the clouds, the sky, let all of them remain pure and remain undisturbed in a state of perpetual peace and happiness and harmony. If nature is in perfect harmony, our life also will be in perfect harmony. So, that was the central principle of many of these ancient rituals. So, you find karma brahmobhavam vidhi. So, all these rituals were explained in the Vedas. And these Vedas describe the highest spiritual truth in their philosophical section. Therefore, all these higher ideas are basically centered on this principle of service and renunciation, which constitute the twin principles of Yagna. So we can perform Yagna every day, every moment. And the only way to practice Yagna is to practice unselfishness, freedom from greed, and contentment, so that we won't disturb the existing harmony of nature. That's why karma brahmobhavam vidhi. So this karma, these rituals, they have explained in the Vedas. Brahma here means Vedas. And Vedas are originated from the immortal, imperishable spiritual reality. Therefore, this Vedic tradition, this all-pervading Vedic tradition is centered in Yagna. How does God come to our life? Through good actions, good thoughts, good ideas. There is no other proof of spirituality. So, if you find a spiritual person, there is nothing special about him physically, but there is something special about him internally. He may be wishing good for everyone. So good thoughts, good ideas, good emotions and good feelings. So that's why these verses have got a great contemporary significance. On the one hand, stresses the importance of living our life in such a way as not to disturb the existing balance in nature. And if we don't disturb the external nature, then our own internal nature, our feelings and emotions also will remain undisturbed. If we pollute the earth and water and air, one day we will be mentally disturbed, because this pollution, this disturbance we give to nature will invariably at some point will cause a problem that will be very disturbing to our own life as a whole. So that's why, so these 14th and 15th verses should be understood in the light of this interpretation. The literal translation can only give you a vague idea and not a very clear idea. That's why from food all beings emerge, and from rain food is produced, and from yagna rains comes, and then again yagna comes from the ritualistic portions, because these are described in the ritualistic portion of the Vedas, and these portions are from the Vedas, and Vedas related to the highest spiritual reality. But all these highest ideas can be practiced by all of us every day in our life by performing all that we do as a kind of yajna. So that's the central theme discussed in these verses. Now we will go to the next verse. Evam pravartidam chakram na anuvartedi hayaha aghayurindriya ramu mokham partha sajivati. Evam pravartidam chakram. Chakram means a cosmic wheel. So he who follows this cosmic rhythm, this cosmic balance, living in harmony with this cosmic nature, cosmic life. Those who follow the principles of harmony with with this principle of interrelatedness, interconnectedness of cosmic life, and live in harmony with nature, they are satisfied. They will have one reward. They will live in contentment. And others who live their lives in such a way that whatever they do will disturb the cosmic life, they are living in sin. The word sin should be understood, not the sense in which it is mentioned in the Abrahamic religious traditions. Sin here means something that we do to harm others, which eventually becomes harmful to ourselves. That's a limited meaning in which it is used. It has no theological significance here. So the evam pravartidam chakram. So a cosmic wheel is described here. What's a cosmic wheel? So I mentioned this earlier. When you live in perfect harmony with nature, then it will produce plenty of rains, and rains will produce food, and that will lead to happiness and contentment. On the other hand, when we disturb the existing nature, nature retaliates, nature punishes, and nature's punishment or retaliation comes in the form of deforestation, famine, earthquakes, disturbances, what you now call this problem of human-induced actions or human-induced climate change and its terrible consequences. So there is a cosmic wheel, a wheel of harmony, a wheel of interrelatedness, internal harmony that we should not disturb if we want to remain undisturbed in our own life. If we want to remain in peace, we should live our life in such a way that will give peace to others, including nature. So this is one meaning that's called, so the whole life itself is taken as a wheel. Chakra means wheel. You find Buddha also uses this term, praditya samutpada, the cosmic wheel. Our actions, Krishna, desire, clinging to life leads to these continuous cycles of birth, life, death, and rebirth. And all these prompted by the karma, what we do. Good or bad actions produce good or bad results. So that's one meaning of this wheel. Another meaning of this chakram or wheel is it comes back to you. That is also explained. What we give to nature, it comes back to you. If we allow the nature to live in prosperity and happiness, the nature also will help us in live in prosperity and happiness. So what this particular verse tells you is, those who follow this cosmic wheel of action is result. Giving to nature and taking back from nature. Giving something back to nature, that's the idea behind. And this giving back is not physically giving back. Giving back means practice contentment, absence of greed, and respect and sense of sanctity to nature. That's what it means. Not that we should worship nature or we should consider nature as God, not at all. It is a principle of give and take that we practice in our everyday life. In interhuman relations, we do that, and also in our relationship with nature. So, it's a very contemporary topic. So, I have, if you have more questions, you are free to ask questions. Otherwise, I will come back to the subject. We will have interaction for some time now. Most welcome. Okay, now that's very interesting. Anyway, I'm happy that you have no doubt at all. So, but I shall come to a very interesting related topic since there is time. How do we really bring this cosmic harmony into our everyday life and actions? So the text gives you this unique principle of So-Dharma. So-Dharma means it's an attitude to what we do. Whatever we do with a sense of sanctity and sacredness. It's our duty. When we do our work as a work imposed upon us, thrust upon us by somebody, there is no freedom in it. There is no joy in it. But suppose we look upon our duty and work, everyday activities, as a work that we do to justify our existence in this world. A doctor going about doing his duty with a sense of, well, this is my sacred duty. So apart from work, he brings in another element to his work. Otherwise, duty as duties, there is nothing very enjoyable about it. There is a lot of, it's very, very boring, intimidating, and absolutely there is no joy when we do something under compulsion. Oh, I have to do this is my job. But suppose a doctor, an engineer, whoever may be the job, we do that work with a great sense of sanctity and sacredness as a way of fulfilling our own spiritual life as a path to spiritual enlightenment, then every work becomes an enjoyable experience. It's so it's a Kantian interpretation of perfectionism. It is good for creating a strong, wealthy, advanced, materialistic society, but doesn't bring a spiritual element in it. So, the Gita tells you that the only way for us to practice this yajna, to bring yajna or this sense of sanctity and sacredness into our everyday activities, to look upon our duty or work, whatever it may be, with a sense of sanctity and sacredness. A work that comes to us without our going for it. By virtue of our qualification, or status, or responsibility, our compulsions, there are many work that actually falls on to our Lord, our duty. Now we look upon that, our So-Dharma. Dharma means our dharma is an ethical, spiritual principle, but here means honoring the ethical and spiritual principles by doing our work in a spiritual way. That's the meaning of So-Dharma. So whatever work we do, so means my own, our own. So whatever we do, if we do as So-Dharma, as a work that comes to us by virtue of our education, our responsibility, our evolution, our qualifications, our social demands, that duty can be taken as a So-Dharma. When we do that, we will not be exploiting nature. We will not deliberately do something that disturbs the inherent balance and harmony in nature. Because the idea that I am doing my duty as So-Dharma itself gives me so much contentment that I won't feel the need to go beyond that and again dig deeper and out of greed exploit nature. So this contentment is the one important prerequisite to practice yajna. That's an important teaching here. In the commentaries, different Sanskrit commentators mention this idea. Practice everything what we do as So-Dharma, as our own sacred duty. Anyone can practice that. You don't have to give up something or introduce something in our life. Whatever we are already doing, maybe with a little bit of bitterness sometimes with some disappointment, sometimes with exuberance, we may get overjoyed at some point, or we may feel disappointed at some other point. So these ups and downs can be removed, can be avoided if we bringing this So-Dharma aspect into our everyday life. For that we don't have to get a new philosophy. Looking upon, it is already there, it is our So-Dharma. When we do it consciously, we can avoid the problems. It's just like traveling in train. If you travel in train, if you run in the train, you are not reaching faster. This is the train that decides when you are going to reach your destination. So once you understand that, then you don't take the trouble to exert yourself by traveling in a train. So it is our So-Dharma, but when we recognize that fact, then every action, every responsibility becomes an enjoyable experience. Otherwise, it becomes a drudgery. So that's Lord Krishna's message here. Now we can have interaction. We have about 10 minutes.
Swamiji, could another way of looking at this idea of santosha or contentment, using that image of the chakram, the wheel, is being in the center of the wheel?
Being
in the center of the wheel, like a still point in the center, sort of like a yoga.
Center, yeah.
Would that be applicable to look at it that way?
Yeah,
possibly?
That's possible. That's one way to do that. But for a beginner, he has to find a way to bringing this yajna awareness into his everyday work and duties and responsibilities. Some work that produces bitterness makes us discontented. Some other work that could make us happy. So there is always these ups and downs, different feelings, different attitudes. So to keep the mind in a state of perfect balance, we can adopt a new psychological and philosophical approach. That is, where whatever I'm doing, it remains So-Dharma. It doesn't make us indifferent or negligent. It doesn't kill our enthusiasm. Not at all, because enthusiasm is part of this karma yoga, So-Dharma. But the point is, it actually will have a healing effect on our mind. Mind remains unaffected by. Yeah. So that's one way to do that. Yeah.
Second part of the question, could you look at Dharma as harmonizing with the Ritam?
Yeah. So I will try to explain this. Now, there are these three words are used in Vedic literature: Satyam, Ritam, and Dharma. Now here, Dharma is not used in the same sense in which it is used in Buddhist tradition, like Dharmam Saranam Gacchami. It is not in that sense, but in a different sense. So, Satyam is truth. So a person, an individual who practices truth or integrity will not deviate from the path of this harmony. Because anyone who practices this principle of truthfulness, he will naturally have a sense of contentment. Well, I am true to my duty. So that such a person will not do anything that disturbs rhythm. They are interrelated. And dharma is the practical, how we practice this satyam. See, dharma also means ethical, moral principle. It is immoral to pollute, to deliberately, consciously do something that pollutes the earth, nature, and water. It is immoral, it is against dharma to do something that disturbs the inherent balance and harmony, that is rhythm of nature. So you find in the Vedic literature, sometimes these terms are used as synonyms. So satyena, dharmena, satyam and dharma, and ritena satyena. You find these terms are used in ancient Vedic literature, sometimes as synonyms, sometimes implying they have different connotations. So you find this, so in a way they are interrelated. Rhythm is the central principle of the inherent harmony. The harmony is not something that you give to nature. It is this harmony that we give to nature. Actually, when our body is in perfect harmony, we are healthy. Like that, when the nature is in perfect harmony, that is inherent pristine condition. We are the ones who give disharmony to nature. So that's why the inherent harmony of nature, that's called rhythm, interrelatedness, that connecting, harmonizing balance, that implies peace. That's why the prayer, Dev Shanti, Antariksham Shanti, Prithvi Shanti, let the heavens, let the middle region, the earth, Prithvi Shanti means let the earth, and then Oshadaya Vanaspadaya Shanti, herbs, plants and trees, mountains and valleys, let the entire cosmic phenomena be in their own inherent, peaceful, harmonious nature. Remain. That prayer you find in the Vedic literature. You find the Yajurveda literature. Okay, please come. Please. Yeah, the system is gone. Yeah, microsystem.
No, I was going to ask if you could elaborate a little bit more on the concept of chakra, the wheel.
Oh yeah,
because it's I've seen it in many different contexts.
True.
I was gonna ask.
So this chakra became so popular in the Western world because it was used in the tantric tradition, and also in tantric tradition it is used sometimes as some kind of a symbols on which you write some sacred mantras that help you to in your spiritual life. And the chakram is used in Buddhist tradition because the wheel of karma, the wheel of action. So this chakra or this wheel is responsible for our present life, our past life, and also future life. So the basic cause of the entire wheel is a desire. What is wheel? Being born, then doing actions, different actions, some of them producing happiness, some of them producing unhappiness, dying, and again reborn. And when you are reborn, you are bringing with you these samskaras, the impressions of previous life, and accordingly you continue doing actions. And again, so this cycle, continuous cycle. So that is one meaning in Buddhist tradition, and also in Hinduism also you find this. This is wheel. The wheel can be interpreted in the light of law of karma and reincarnation or rebirth. Death is only a point of transition. Death is only a semicolon or a comma, it's not a full stop, it's not the end of the life of journey. It is just one point, and you come back again bearing with you with the burden of your samskaras accumulated in this life. So accordingly we act, we behave, we act, we talk, we are attracted to certain higher ideas or maybe other ideas because of the previous samskaras already accumulated, impressions accumulated in our mental system. They produce tendencies and attitudes and behavior patterns. So this goes on rotating. We come out of this only when we recognize our spiritual reality. We are not this entity that comes and goes on rotating along the wheel. We are the Atman, we are the eternal divine reality present everywhere. In Vedanta. In Buddhism, it's called Praditi Samutpada, the principle of dependent origination. You come out of this when you practice nirvana. After practicing the eightfold disciplines, you practice nirvana, you attain nirvana, then you transcend this state of going through these endless cycles of life, death and rebirth. And this also implies something in our everyday life. As I mentioned earlier, you can always see a kind of cause-effect link, an action and its consequence link in our everyday life. So, according to our previous samskaras or impressions, we live our life, we act and talk and work and live, and the same actions also produce fresh samskaras or impressions, and they get accumulated in the mental system. Accordingly, we go on rotating this wheel. So, this causal link can be transcended. In Buddhism, when you are completely free from desire, clinging to life, all these causes that really become the cause of this wheel. In Vedanta, you attain this liberation from this rotating wheel when you realize that you are the all-pervading divine reality. So the subject comes again in some of the next verses. So we will continue discussion next Friday, 7:30 p.m. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Namastu.